Are you familiar with that specific pause? That moment when a man falls quiet, not because he's checked out, but because the ground beneath him is moved. His gaze changes. The casual game he thought he was winning dissolves instantly. Why? Because he realizes he is facing a woman who refuses to play. A woman whose mere existence demands that he stop running. She doesn't beg for approval or hunt for attention. She doesn't need to. She is the standard. She stands as an anchor of stillness in a life submerged in noise. That is the precise second he knows he has encountered something rare. She isn't more aggressive, more difficult, or more theatrical. She is distinct because she possesses a tranquility that is almost extinct in a culture addicted to drama. Her energy acts as a mirror, reflecting his true nature back to him, perhaps for the very first time. Carl Jung observed that there is nothing more frightening than the complete acceptance of oneself. What intimidates a man when he stands before a woman like this isn't her dominance, but what she unlocks within his own soul. She compels him to stare directly at the parts of his life he has tried to ignore. While the rest of the world screams to be seen, she operates with silent conviction. While others panic for instant clarity, she rests in the wisdom of timing. While others beg to be chosen, she has already chosen herself. And that energy, authentic, grounded, and unshakably calm, forces a man to rise or walk away. There is no middle ground, because a woman like this doesn't compete. She doesn't argue. She doesn't perform. She simply is. And that being carries more power than any strategy ever could. Composure is the first thing that separates an ordinary woman from one who leaves an imprint on a man's soul. It's not about emotional coldness or pretending not to care. It's about mastery. It's about knowing that emotions are signals, not commands. It's about knowing that silence can speak louder than shouting, and stillness can shake a man far more than chaos. When a man encounters a woman who doesn't react impulsively, who doesn't spiral into panic or insecurity, who doesn't let every small action define her sense of self, he becomes unsettled. Because most people are conditioned to expect intensity, arguments, insecurity, jealousy, emotional chasing. He expects the storm, but instead, he is met with clear skies, a horizon he didn't know how to stand confidently under. He expects arguments, and she responds with clarity. He expects emotional chaos, and she offers stability. He expects fear, and she embodies certainty. In a culture where emotional turbulence is mistaken for passion, peace stands out like a revolution. A woman who remains composed, who owns her emotional responses instead of being ruled by them, communicates something powerful without opening her mouth. She has self-mastery. She is not controlled by moods, anxiety, or ego. She decides how she moves, not her fears, not his behavior, not the pressure around her. She is not reactive. She is responsive. Her actions do not come from panic, but from purpose. Her silence is not withdrawal. It's discernment. That kind of composure is magnetic. It disarms him completely, because it reveals that she is not reacting to him. She is responding from herself. People who operate from ego need to win arguments, prove points to defend themselves endlessly. They play games to gain control, but she doesn't play. She lets time and truth reveal everything. She lets people expose themselves while she remains rooted in who she is. That steadiness, graceful, poised, unshaken, changes him. He realizes he cannot provoke her, manipulate her, or control her through emotional pressure. She is the calm in the storm, not the storm itself. And the world is starving for calm. Her composure reveals that she is not addicted to chaos. She does not confuse intensity with intimacy. She knows love is not loud. It is consistent. It is steady. it is peace. So when he attempts to trigger insecurity through silence, distance, emotional inconsistency, she does not break. She does not collapse. She simply observes. She breathes. She maintains her energy. And that's when everything shifts. That's when he realizes he cannot shake her. He's not dealing with someone emotionally fragile. He's dealing with someone emotionally sovereign. Someone who has learned that the loudest person is not the strongest. The strongest is the one who stays centered when the world spins. He's used to women matching intensity with more intensity. He's used to confusion breeding more confusion. He's used to emotional chaos. But she is a mirror he didn't expect. A clear one. His reflection becomes unavoidable. When she stays composed, she breaks the pattern completely. He begins to realize she doesn't seek control. She already has it. Not over him, but over herself. Not arrogance, but awareness. She doesn't need to win using words. She wins with presence. And that presence has gravity. It is felt in the silence between messages, in the length of her pauses, in the unshaken steadiness of her gaze. Her calm becomes louder than any argument could ever be. In those moments of testing, whether intentional or unconscious, her composure becomes a teacher. Every time she remains calm, she wordlessly reminds him that maturity is not domination. It's discipline. It's emotional responsibility. It's the ability to pause instead of explode, to respond instead of react. She teaches him that peace is not weakness. It is power, mastered through self-awareness. Because real strength isn't loud. Real strength doesn't need an audience. Real strength whispers in silence and roars in restraint. And when he realizes her calm doesn't come from apathy, but from balance, from having done the inner work he avoided, he begins to respect her. Even if he doesn't understand her yet, he feels her. He feels her depth, her stillness, her quiet but unshakable force. Her composure creates mystery. In a world addicted to oversharing, overreacting, and constantly proving identity, a woman who moves with quiet intention stands out. She becomes unforgettable because he cannot predict her. He cannot decode her. He cannot read her like he reads everyone else. Her depth makes him slow down. It makes him think. It makes him confront himself. And that right there is where transformation begins. Because the most powerful women are not the loudest. They are the ones who carry silence like a sword. Depth is one of the rarest qualities a woman can carry. It isn't loud. It isn't displayed. It isn't performed. It is felt. It lives beneath the surface, beneath the noise, beneath the superficial layers where most people exist. Depth is the quiet, grounded power that turns a moment into meaning, a conversation into reflection, a connection into transformation. When a man encounters a woman with true depth, something shifts inside him. It's not lust. It's not excitement. It's not adrenaline. It's awakening. Depth forces him to see beyond the surface level of attraction. It challenges him to look inward instead of outward. It invites him to think instead of react. Carl Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." That is what a woman of depth does. She awakens something dormant within him. She calls out the part of him that has been sleepwalking through life. The part that longs for meaning, for purpose, for truth. She doesn't impress him with appearance, status, or noise. She impresses him with silence, with reflection, with curiosity. She asks questions that other people are afraid to ask. Not to interrogate, but to understand. She listens in a way that makes him feel heard for the first time. She speaks in a way that makes him pay attention. She thinks before she responds. She processes, contemplates, observes. She brings awareness where others bring distraction. Where others gossip, she analyzes. Where others complain, She understands. Where others rush to be loud, she chooses to be real. And a man feels that difference instantly. In her presence, the energy shifts. Time slows. He realizes he's not speaking to someone who wants to fill silence. He's speaking to someone who honors silence. Someone who knows silence, holds truth that words sometimes destroy. A woman with depth is not intimidated by emotional complexity. She doesn't run from uncomfortable conversations. She knows that growth doesn't happen in comfort. She knows that intimacy is not built on excitement or performance, but on honesty, vulnerability, and reflection. She asks him what he believes, what he values, what he fears, what he dreams of. Not to measure him, but to understand him. And for the first time, he feels seen. Not for who he pretends to be, but for who he actually is. Depth is emotional intelligence. It's the ability to read what isn't spoken. She hears the silence in his voice. She sees the tension in his posture. She recognizes when he is speaking from pain instead of anger, fear instead of distance, ego instead of truth. She can sense the difference between avoidance and peace, between detachment and protection, between affection and possession. And that kind of perception is rare. It is disarming. She does not react to flaws. She understands where they came from. She does not judge. She observes. She does not shame. She seeks clarity. That awareness is not softness. It is wisdom. It is the maturity to remain compassionate instead of competitive. It is the emotional strength to hold space instead of control outcomes. It is the patience to understand rather than assume. And men feel safe in the presence of that depth. Safe to open, safe to speak, safe to remove the armor that the world taught them to wear. Because she doesn't use vulnerability as a weapon. She uses it as a bridge. Depth transforms a man. It elevates him. It raises his standard. It makes him realize how shallow his past connections were. A man cannot go back to superficial once he has experienced meaningful. And that's why he can't forget her. Because she changed him without trying to. Because she revealed a version of himself that he wants to keep. Depth also means patience. She doesn't rush connect. She doesn't chase intensity. She lets things unfold naturally. She knows that real intimacy is not built in speed, but in consistency. She holds space for growth instead of demanding perfection. She allows silence instead of forcing constant stimulation. She understands that some of the strongest relationships are built not in noise, but in quiet presence. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." A woman with depth brings consciousness into connection. She doesn't let emotional patterns run blindly. She helps illuminate them, with patience instead of pressure, with reflection instead of accusation. Depth is not perfection. It is experience transformed into wisdom. It is pain transformed into perspective. It is healing transformed into strength. She has felt heartbreak. She has felt disappointment. She has known loss. But instead of allowing those experiences to harden her, she allowed them to deepen her. She went inward. She asked hard questions. She rebuilt herself from within. And because of that, she doesn't fear imperfection. She values authenticity over performance, truth over illusion, substance over appearance. Her words carry weight because they were earned, not borrowed. She speaks from lived truth, not theory. She loves with intention, not fear. Men can sense authenticity. They can feel when a woman is pretending to be deep and when she truly is. True depth doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself without effort. It shows up in her silence, in her pauses, in her eyes, in the way she chooses what matters and walks away from what doesn't. Depth changes the rhythm of every relationship she enters. It slows it down. It makes it real. In her presence, he becomes thoughtful, more intentional, more aware. She inspires growth, not with pressure, but with example. She doesn't say, "Be better." She makes him question why he isn't. She becomes the mirror that shows him who he could be. Because that is what depth does. It awakens depth. And once a man has awakened, he can no longer return to sleep. Once he has seen meaning, he cannot be satisfied with distraction. Once he has met a woman who lives from soul rather than ego, he can no longer desire a connection built on performance. He realizes that she is different, not because she tries to be, but because she has become. She is a product of self-discovery, self-mastery, and self-awareness. She does not demand depth. She embodies it. She does not force connection. She cultivates it. And that is why he cannot forget her. Because she didn't touch just his heart. She touched his consciousness. She made him think. She made him feel. She made him see. She made him grow. And that changes everything. Boundaries are one of the most powerful and defining qualities of a woman who has mastered herself. They are not walls built from fear or pride. They are the structure that protects peace, honors self-respect, and preserves emotional dignity. They are not aggressive, not defensive, not designed to punish. They are clarity, and clarity is rare in a world addicted to confusion. When a man encounters a woman with firm, healthy boundaries, he feels something he is not used to: accountability. He realizes instantly that excuses, manipulation, charm, and inconsistency hold no power here. Because a woman with boundaries does not chase. She does not beg. She does not negotiate with disrespect. She chooses. She chooses peace over chaos, self-respect over attention, truth over comfort, alignment over attachment. Her boundaries speak long before her words do. She doesn't need to announce her standards. They are visible in the way she moves, the way she responds, the way she removes herself silently from situations that do not honor her. She doesn't argue when someone shows her who they are. She observes, she accepts, and she acts accordingly. While others react emotionally when a boundary is crossed, she responds with stillness. She doesn't yell. She doesn't plead. She doesn't attempt to rewrite someone's character. She simply steps back. She returns to herself. She chooses silence not as avoidance, but as power. Because silence from a woman who respects herself speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. That silence is not passive. It cuts. It confronts. It exposes the truth more clearly than any argument. Because silence says, "I will not fight to be valued. I already know my worth." And that realization changes a man. He suddenly understands that if he loses her, it won't be because she didn't love him. It will be because he failed to match her strength. He realizes he cannot manipulate her emotions because she lives from principles, not impulses. He cannot shake her with distance because she does not crumble in solitude. He cannot intimidate her with silence because she is at home in her own stillness. A woman with boundaries does not fear losing someone. She fears losing herself. That is why she leaves quietly when something violates her peace. Not out of spite, not to create reaction, but out of wisdom. She knows energy does not lie. She knows disrespect does not fix itself. She knows love without respect is dependency, not devotion. She would rather walk away with dignity than stay and abandon herself. And that choice, calm, firm, final, forces a man to confront the reality of who he is. Because boundaries reveal everything. They expose intentions instantly. A man with genuine intentions respects them. A man with hidden motives resents them. A man with integrity rises to meet them. A man with ego tries to destroy them. Boundaries act as a filter, without her lifting a finger. A woman with boundaries doesn't need to explain her standards to someone unwilling to meet them. She doesn't need to justify her expectations. She doesn't need permission to protect her peace. She operates from truth, not ego, from strength, not fear. And that strength is magnetic, because she is not afraid of being alone. She knows solitude is better than company that diminishes her. She knows solitude is a sanctuary, not a prison. She knows loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of self. She has done the inner work. She has met herself, and she refuses to abandon that relationship for shallow connections. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." A woman with boundaries has done exactly that. She has become someone she respects, and because she respects herself, others must respect her too. Her boundaries teach people how to treat her, not through threats, but through behavior. She doesn't punish. She doesn't lecture. She simply withdraws access from those who misuse it. She knows that energy is earned, not owed. That intimacy is built, not assumed. That trust must be demonstrated, not spoken. She is not afraid to say no, not afraid to require consistency, not afraid to walk away from almosts and mayhap efforts disguised as love. She does not confuse chemistry with compatibility. She does not romanticize potential. She watches for action. She doesn't fall in love with words. She falls in love with character. A woman with boundaries does not stay where she is tolerated. She belongs where she is valued. And that is what makes her unforgettable. Because she demonstrates something most people never witness, the fusion of softness and strength. She can be compassionate without becoming a doormat. She can forgive without allowing continued access. She can love deeply without abandoning self-respect. She can say, "I care for you," and in the same breath say, "But I will not participate in something that hurts me." A man who values her will rise, not because she demands, but because she inspires. A man who does not will disappear. And either outcome is peace. Boundaries transform relationships. They turn emotion into structure, love into respect, connection into growth. They teach both people what matters. They deepen intimacy rather than restrict it, because real love thrives where clarity is present. A woman with boundaries doesn't fear losing the wrong man. She fears losing herself before the right one arrives. And that inner strength is what sets her apart. Because the world is full of women who bend themselves to be loved. But a woman with boundaries is different. She stands tall. She stands grounded. She stands whole. She waits for love that aligns instead of love that demands sacrifice of self. And once a man meets that kind of woman, he realizes that she is not like the others. She is the standard. She is the mirror. She is the awakening. She is the one who teaches him what respect truly looks like, not through force, but through presence. He realizes losing her would not be an accident. It would be the cost of his own unwillingness to grow. And that realization lingers long after she's gone, because you do not forget someone who taught you how to treat yourself. You do not forget someone who showed you what meaningful connection requires. You do not forget a woman with boundaries. Independence is one of the most magnetic and misunderstood forms of strength a woman can possess. It is not coldness. It is not detachment. It is not the rejection of love or the performance of invulnerability. True independence is inner wholeness. It is the quiet knowledge that she is complete within herself, that she does not need anyone to fill her, save her, or define her. She chooses love from fullness, not emptiness. When a man meets a woman rooted in that kind of independence, he feels something he can't quite name. It is not intimidation. It is reverence. It is the awareness that she lives from a place within herself that is unshakable. She does not cling. She does not grasp. She does not chase. She attracts through alignment, through purpose, through presence. She wants a partner, not a crutch, not a savior, not an escape. She is not afraid of loving deeply, but she will never abandon herself in the process. She doesn't disappear into a relationship. She remains herself within it. She brings a life, not a void. She brings passion, not need. She brings peace, not chaos. Her independence is not a barrier to love. It is the very foundation that makes love stronger. A truly independent woman does not define herself by a man's attention, affection, or approval. She knows those things are additions, not sources. She doesn't lose her identity and connection. She expands it. She doesn't collapse when someone pulls away. She remains grounded, centered, and calm. She continues living, dreaming, building. She doesn't pause her life, waiting for someone to choose her. She has already chosen herself. And that emotional steadiness is rare. It shows that her happiness is not borrowed. It is built from within. She has learned how to enjoy her own company. She has learned how to sit with silence. She has learned how to grow alone. She does not fear solitude. She honors it. She uses it to reflect, to deepen, to realign. She knows that no relationship will ever feel peaceful if she cannot feel peace alone. He notices very quickly that she doesn't panic when he withdraws. She doesn't crumble under uncertainty. She doesn't beg for reassurance, because she knows that reassurance received through pressure is meaningless. She trusts timing. She trusts clarity. She trusts herself. She knows that if something is meant for her, it will never require her to sacrifice her dignity. She isn't impressed by temporary intensity. She seeks consistency. She isn't interested in empty promises. She watches for patterns. She isn't blinded by potential. She pays attention to reality. That level of emotional independence commands deep respect. Her independence is not ego. It is self-respect woven with self-awareness. She doesn't expect someone else to heal what she hasn't faced. She doesn't place the responsibility for her wounds onto others. She does the work. She grows. She learns. She evolves, because she knows love is not built on dependency. It is built on partnership. And a man who meets a woman like that begins to reflect on himself. He starts to wonder if he is living with the same level of purpose, discipline, and identity. He begins to see where he has escaped instead of evolved, where he has relied instead of risen. Her strength doesn't compete with him. It invites him into his own. There is a difference between independence built from pain and independence built from healing. The first builds walls. The second builds foundations. The first pushes love away. The second strengthens it. He can feel the difference. She is not independent because she refuses to need anyone. She is independent because she refuses to betray herself. She doesn't withhold affection to gain power. She gives freely, but wisely. Her independence makes her mysterious, not because she is hiding, but because she is fulfilled. She is not waiting for someone to arrive and give her meaning. She is too busy creating meaning herself. She is not expecting someone to bring excitement. She creates her own joy. She is not searching to be completed. She is already whole. That type of woman changes the atmosphere of a relationship. She doesn't drain energy. She inspires it. She doesn't control. She cooperates. She doesn't demand effort. She reciprocates it. She doesn't collapse under challenges. She rises through them. She is not impressed by possession. She values partnership. She is not impressed by promises. She watches consistency. She is not impressed by control. She honors mutual respect. A man quickly realizes he cannot play small with her. He cannot be inconsistent or emotionally lazy. She won't settle for half love or half effort, not because she's demanding, but because she knows her worth. She knows what she brings: peace, intelligence, purpose, vision, integrity. And those things are rare. She will not allow a relationship to diminish what she has spent years building. Her independence also redefines femininity. She doesn't see strength and softness as opposites. She embodies both. She can be nurturing without being submissive. She can be gentle without being weak. She can be soft without being breakable. She can love without losing her freedom. She has learned that real connection does not require losing oneself. It requires becoming more of oneself. And when a man realizes that she is with him not because she needs him, but because she chooses him, everything changes. It becomes a relationship not of control, but of respect. Not of anxiety, but of trust. Not of dependence, but of partnership. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." A woman with independence has chosen who she wants to be. She has crafted herself thoughtfully. She has turned pain into wisdom, solitude into peace, and reflection into power. And that power is magnetic. It is quiet. It is steady. It is humbling. Because while many chase love to escape emptiness, she carries love within her. She doesn't need a relationship to feel whole. She only accepts relationships that protect that wholeness. And when a man sees that, he understands that she is not like other women. She is rare. She is whole. She is complete. And that completeness is what makes her love the rarest and most valuable gift he will ever experience. Because she doesn't love from fear. She loves from freedom. And love born from freedom is unforgettable. Softness is one of the most misunderstood and most powerful forms of strength a woman can embody. The world often teaches us that power must be loud, forceful, and unyielding. That to be respected, one must be hard, guarded, and untouchable. But a woman who has walked through fire, healed herself, and risen stronger, knows a deeper truth. Softness is not weakness. Softness is mastery. Softness is power refined through wisdom. True softness is not the softness of fragility. It is the softness of resilience. It is the softness of someone who could have become hardened by pain, but instead chose transformation. Someone who could have closed her heart, but instead chose depth. Someone who could have built walls, but instead built inner strength. A woman like that has learned that her gentleness is not something to hide. It is her crown. A woman who embodies softness does not need to prove herself. She does not need to raise her voice to be heard. She does not need to dominate to be respected. Her power lives in her emotional intelligence, in the way she listens, in the way she understands, in the way she responds with intention instead of reaction. When she speaks, her tone is steady, grounded, thoughtful. And that steadiness disarms people far more than aggression ever could. Softness is the ability to remain kind in moments where it would be easier to be cruel. To stay calm in spaces where chaos is expected. To show understanding in situations where judgment is the norm. To hold compassion without abandoning boundaries. It is emotional control at the highest level. It is strength guided by grace. A woman who has mastered softness doesn't pretend life didn't hurt her. She has scars. She has history. She has endured storms that shaped her. She has known heartbreak, disappointment, loss, and she survived. But instead of letting pain make her bitter, she let it make her wiser. She didn't use suffering as an excuse to close, but as a reason to open. That is why her presence feels different. It feels safe. It feels peaceful. It feels like exhaling after holding your breath for far too long. A man who encounters a woman like this feels something he may never have felt before. Comfort without performance. Acceptance without pressure. Space without judgment. She doesn't force him to reveal himself, but he finds himself doing it anyway. Not because she demands vulnerability, but because she makes it safe. She doesn't belittle his feelings. She listens. She doesn't rush to fix him. She understands. She doesn't make him feel weak for being human. She honors him for it. That kind of softness is healing. It awakens a part of him that the world forced into silence. It calls forward a version of him that he forgot existed. It shows him that love doesn't have to feel like war. That connection doesn't have to feel like survival. That peace is a form of intimacy deeper than intensity ever could be. And yet her softness is not something he can take advantage of. Because softness, guided by self-respect, will never allow mistreatment. She may offer forgiveness, but she will never tolerate repeated disrespect. She will express herself gently, but firmly. She will walk away quietly, but permanently. She understands that softness is not the absence of strength. It is strength under control. Softness does not mean she is emotionless. It means her emotions serve her rather than sabotage her. Softness does not mean she avoids conflict. It means she approaches conflict with clarity instead of chaos. Softness does not mean she ignores wounds. It means she faces them with maturity. A man may be drawn to beauty, but it is her softness that keeps him. The way she stays calm under pressure. The way she turns silence into understanding rather than punishment. The way she holds space for others without losing herself. The way she turns every moment into presence. That energy stays with him long after she leaves the room. He begins to associate her with peace, with depth, with healing, with truth. He thinks about her, not because she demanded his attention, but because she earned his respect. He remembers her not because she performed, but because she was real. He realizes that the world is full of loudness, but rare in quiet power. Full of attraction, but rare in connection. Full of faces, but rare in presence. And that is why he cannot forget her. Because she is the rare combination of strength and softness, discipline and compassion, boundaries and warmth. She is the kind of woman who transforms everything she touches, not through force, but through grace, not through control, but through alignment, not through perfection, but through authenticity. She becomes the standard he didn't know existed. She becomes the mirror that makes him see himself clearly. She becomes the awakening that changes him forever. She becomes unforgettable because she is not like other women. Not because she tries to be, but because she has done the inner work most never do. She mastered her emotions. She healed her wounds. She honored her boundaries. She built her independence. She protected her softness. And now her love is a gift, not a dependency. Her presence is a blessing, not a burden. And those who are granted entry into her sanctuary instantly realize the weight of that honor. Carl Jung taught us that consciousness is born of pain. She is the living embodiment of that truth. She has walked through the inferno and come out as pure gold. If you see yourself in this reflection, or if you are in the process of becoming her, never offer an apology for your complexity, your boundaries, your gentleness, or your tranquility. You are a scarcity. You are a force of nature. You are essential. The man meant for you will never attempt to shadow your brilliance. He will guard it. He will evolve alongside it. He will elevate himself to reach it. If this message pierced your heart, if it aligned with your spirit, or if you are walking this path of becoming, do not drift away. We are cultivating a movement of individuals committed to deep emotional growth, radical self-respect, and true transformation. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a thought in the comments, and let me know which part hit home for you. Ring the bell so you are alerted for the next chapter. Because we are just getting started, and we rise together. Like the video, share your voice, and subscribe now to walk this path with us.